This is the Mercedes EQC. Now this is a very significant car because this is the first proper all-electric vehicle from the world's oldest manufacturer. Now quite frankly, Mercedes, which has been at the forefront of innovation, has been left behind in the EV race, that is until now, because rivals like Jaguar and Audi have launched before it. But as they say, it's never too late, and this is Mercedes' first proper shot. We are here in Norway, which is the capital of the electric car world, to drive it and tell you what it's really like. Well, the EQC is not quite the first Mercedes EV. Mercedes did have the E-Cell and electric A-Class, of which only 500 were made. And if you count Mercedes' smart brand, well, there's a smart EV on the road too. But the EQC, now that's Mercedes' first serious shot at electric vehicles. Now before you ask, no, the EQC is not coming to India. The lack of charging infrastructure and the hefty 1 crore plus price tag after taxes and duties are massive deterrents. So why am I here? Well, Mercedes wants you to know that they have joined the EV race in earnest. Well, you've got a whole EQ menu which tells you everything you want to know about this car when it's running as an EV. You've got charging options, where you can look for charging stations, the consumption, energy flow. There's just a whole host of features over here which really keep you up to date on what this vehicle is doing. I noticed there's only 30 k's of charge left in the 80 kilowatt hour battery. So first up, we have to head to the nearest charging station, which is a breeze because they are all located in the navigation system. So I head straight there. So here I am at one of the charging stations in Norway. That's really amazing because if you see, this is a regular petrol pump, petrol and diesel, but you've got so many fast chargers here. In fact, I think there are more fast chargers than there are petrol and diesel dispensing systems. It's a typical refueling station off the highway. All of them now have a charging point. How do we charge the vehicle? Well, multiple ways to do it. You can either do it with an app on the mobile or the old-fashioned way, which is with a card. And we just use the card, tap it here. It says start, good to go. Now I've got about 41% charging. The app tells me it's going to take a bit of time to fully charge it. This is a very fast charger, but you know, not quite like filling diesel or petrol. You just can't fill a bucket of volts. So I think while it's charging, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. 20 minutes to get an 80% charge is not too bad, and there are plenty of quick chargers around. On a full charge, the EQC will give around 400 kilometers on the new European cycle, which in today's EV world is pretty average. With the car charged enough, it's time to hit the road. Okay, electric cars, they're all quiet, but the EQC, it's eerily quiet. It's actually noiseless. And Mercedes, they've taken forward their reputation of refinement, which they had with IC engines, which they've had for over 100 years, even with their first EV. The EQC is no slouch, and it shoots to 100 k's from rest in just 5.1 seconds. That is seriously fast for a 2.4-ton SUV. Floor the pedal and the EQC lunges forward with a strong, seamless surge of acceleration. You won't really complain of performance because with 390 horsepower and 760 Newton meters of torque, floor it and this thing goes. Oh my God. You're just breaking the speed limit in no time at all. The way the EQC gathers speed silently and without drama can land you in trouble in a country known for its crazily high speeding fines. You almost always have to keep an eye on the speedo to know how fast you're going. There are none of the usual telltale signs like engine revs, wind or tire noise. The only indicators are the beautiful tall pine trees lining Norway's roads that whoosh by in a blur. Now you've got multiple drive modes over here, a lot of them which are specific for the EQC or for an EV. So you've got maximum range, you've got eco, you've got the regular comfort, and you've got sport, in which it really uses all the power from both the motors to give you that fantastic hit of acceleration. Another cool feature is how you can alter the amount of regen braking. In fact, it feels like you're using the gears, because for one, you have to use the paddles here to activate it. Of course, there are no gears, so, well, the paddles have been put to that use. And in Sport Plus, you're literally coasting. In D, there's more regen. Then you've got D minus and D double minus, and that really kind of holds you back. It kind of slows you down. And what it does also is put a lot more charge into the battery. So this is something which is quite good fun playing around with. The EQC is primarily a front-wheel drive car, but prod a bit deeper with your right foot and the more powerful rear motor kicks in as well, making the EQC feel more like a rear-wheel drive car. Torque vectoring balances the different electric motors on each axle and is partly responsible for the EQC's drama-free handling. Now the handling, it doesn't have the incisiveness of the I-Pace, it doesn't feel as eager, but this car is meant to be driven in a pretty relaxed way. I mean, don't forget that this is actually a GLC equivalent. It's a well-rounded family SUV. The numb steering and sheer weight of the car won't goad you to attack corners, but at the same time, for an SUV, it has a reassuring poise that's rooted in the low center of gravity the EQC, like most EVs with an underfloor mounted battery, has. And what's really impressive is the ride. It's very soft, it's very pliant. In fact, probably this is the most comfortable EV I've driven yet. The ride on 20-inch rims is incredibly smooth, but on well-paved Norwegian roads, even a bullock cart would feel comfortable. Crossing tram tracks and a few sharp edges in Oslo didn't disturb the EQC, which clearly has been tuned for comfort in true Merc fashion. To be honest, the drive is relatively boring and even sterile, but I guess that is what the future of motoring will be. But not all of us are always behind the wheel, and a car is often considered for the way it looks, the space and practicality it offers. So let's take a closer look at the EQC. The EQC looks quite similar to the Mercedes GLC, and that's not a coincidence because it's based on the same mid-size SUV's platform. Now, this isn't a groundbreaking design which you would expect from a car that represents the future of motoring. And in fact, it looks rather plain from certain angles, especially the side profile. The only bits that spice up the looks are these stunning alloys and the distinctive nose, which has very techy looking headlights and a fiber optic light strip running across the bonnet. So the cabin of the EQC, it's very Mercedes. You've got the familiar switchgear from other Mercedes cars in here. You've now even got this double screen which spans the dashboard. This again is from most other Mercs. The center console also is very Merc-like, but you have got certain bits which are unique to this car, unique to an electric vehicle. You've got this little blue accent, blue denoting electric vehicles these days. And you've got the EQ sub menu, which tells you everything you need to know about the car when it's in EV. You've got electric consumption, you've got energy flow, and a whole amount of features. You've also got multiple drive modes in addition to eco, maximum range. You've got comfort, sport, and there's even a mode of multiple modes for improving the regeneration. So really a lot to play with over here. And in case you think electric cars are boring, well, you've got enough gizmos in here to keep you very, very excited. You do have some interesting design cues like the fluted aircon vents and the grated speaker grills. Space-wise, the EQC is not very large and similar on the inside to the GLC that's sold here in India. For one, you sit pretty high up in front like a typical SUV, but at the back, the raised floor, which has the battery package underneath, and the roof line that tapers towards the rear, kind of crunches down on all-round room. Unlike a lot of Mercs, backseat comfort is not an EQC strength, unfortunately. Luggage space too isn't generous either, and with the engine gone, you'd expect to have some sort of a front boot, but that space is taken by the motor that drives the front axles. Speaking of which, let's get under the skin of this car. So what we have here is a cutaway of the Mercedes EQC, the first genuine EV from Mercedes, and what this allows us is to get under the skin of this car. Well, of course, the center focus of any EV is the battery pack, and this is a massive battery pack. It's an 80 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is quite slim and sits flat and low down on the floor. Now what this does is it's good for packaging, and it lowers the center of gravity considerably, which is great for handling. But don't forget, this is a heavy battery, and the weight of this vehicle is 2.5 tons. And powering this vehicle is a pair of electric motors. You've got one 150 kilowatt motor up front over here, which powers the front wheels, and you've got another 150 kilowatt motor at the back. So in total 300 kilowatts, which is 390 horsepower in horsepower speak, and it's a four-wheel drive car. But when you're cruising gently, the default mode is front-wheel drive for the EQC. It's just on demand. When you need the traction, you need the torque, you need the performance, that power kicks in at the back as well. It's quite conventional in some ways. You've got a regular suspension setup over here. You've got this big McPherson strut over here. You've got an inverter over here which really controls the motor. So this is all part of the electronics of the car. Coming to the back, you've got the charging socket over here, AC and DC. So quick charging, really not a problem. And overall, if you look at the car, it's quite spacious. I mean, you've seen the floor pan. It kind of lends itself to a very spacious, practical cabin. And that's the thing about EVs today. They're getting more and more practical. And when you come to Norway, you know that it's not just a car of the future is already here. And that's what struck me about Norway. It's a country that has embraced electric cars like no other. I mean, where else will you see so many EVs? Even the cabs here are Teslas. Norway's EV success is down to three fundamental reasons. Firstly, electric cars are cheap to buy because they are heavily subsidized. Then they are easy to use because things like parking, tolls, even charging is free. And then they are easy to charge. Charging stations are just about everywhere. It's a simple enough formula, but not many countries have the gumption to see it through. And this can only happen when public and private sectors work as a team under a government totally committed to a future of electric mobility. It's then possible to create an environment where people, just want to buy environmentally friendly cars.